Hi everybody, my name is Mike Goodwin. Thank you for joining me today. Today I want to be talking about the Cloud Shared Responsibility Frameworks. So what this is, I'll bring up on screen here a Microsoft documentation, so very much specific to Azure, and I'll just zoom into this picture so we can see it a little bit more detailed. This is what Microsoft provide to you as a customer of Azure, which explains exactly how they see a shared security responsibility matrix. So let's just start as something as a reference point, this furthest right hand column in an on-premise world. So this is where you have everything in your own environment, be that a server room, a co-location facility, a shared rack, or even just a server under a desk. You've got the full remit of security considerations all the way from the physical side of things, so in terms of the physical hosts, the networking that connects them, up into the application and operating system considerations, and then into the actual data and the application itself in terms of who can access what data within that. And so as the adoption of cloud has continued, the first or the one of the easiest ways to consume some cloud is this version of IaaS, infrastructure as a service. And effectively what that is virtualized machines inside a cloud platform. So within the framework of this model, we're effectively outsourcing or giving away the security of the lowest 3 bits here, which are anything physical. So that's the physical Azure data center, the physical servers which are running your compute workloads, and the networking that connects those together in those data centers. But everything above that, so everything inside the virtual machine, the operating system, the applications, the virtualized networking, is still very much your consideration that you have to think about how you're securing that in the exact same way that you would do if you were on premise. Now moving beyond the IaaS into PaaS or PaaS, that's platform as a service. And so here we're consuming applications rather than operating systems. And so we might be consuming like an Azure web app, which might be an IIS web server, or we can be consuming SQL as a service. And so at that point, we're giving away ownership of the operating system. You don't get access to the Windows server that's running that platform anymore. And we have some shared responsibilities across the application and networking elements. And that, as an example, would be inside an Azure web app. Do we want to enable or require TLS? And so that's where an element of shared responsibility exists. But we still have full ownership of the data itself inside the application, inside the system. And then the top level would be the software as a service, or SaaS, and is probably one of the most understandable platforms, where we really only have the consideration of the data inside the platform. We have some shared consideration in relation to identity and who we say what's going on, and who we say who's able to access the system and the roles and responsibilities that they have. But then everything else in terms of the back-end application, the operating system and everything associated with it is very much in the control of Microsoft. So we've found over the years that customers have traditionally moved from on-premise into using IaaS platforms. That's a lift and shift is the terminology that we hear of virtual machines. And in this circumstance, there's often a belief that some of these considerations here, which even Microsoft say are the customer's responsibility, that they are fixed by the cloud hosting provider. And if you're using a virtual machine in a platform like Azure, and you don't have some of the network controls like you would have on premise, if you don't have a suitable firewall with some form of IPS or IDS, with some form of malware control, then you need to be asking yourself why. If you had that on premise, should you not be having something comparable in the cloud? Now, some cases that might be fine. There might be reasons why that isn't the case, but in most cases, if you're using IaaS type platforms, you need to be thinking about very comparable things inside this middle section. Now, there should also be some thinking about the benefits that this brings. Inside a software-defined network, which is what a public cloud is, we can actually get so much better functionality than what we would have had on-premise. on-premise for networking controls, we're often governed by the layer 3 boundary, and having a firewall effectively be the perimeter between different layer 3 networks. Now, the OSI model and most of the layering concepts, certainly at the lower end, disappear inside a software-defined network. And so we can now be doing firewall network controls and obviously the threat prevention and other features that come along with that between two hosts that are on the same subnet that are logically just one IP address apart, and so normally would have a direct communication. We can be doing the firewalling and threat prevention inside that traffic. And some considerations if we're thinking about the platform as a service, where traditionally the PaaS environment may be accessible worldwide. Well, the reason that that's a shared responsibility there is with the right configuration, we can still be having some functionality of network and application controls applied at those PaaS platforms. And that can be very beneficial when we think about what controls we can be applying at this sort of level that have a direct bearing on the data. So considerations for data loss prevention, or considerations for IPS and WAF type technologies that are going to secure that data against inadvertent breach or inadvertent change, can still very much be applied even if we're consuming this platform as a service and we don't and no longer have access to the backend operating system. With the right configuration inside Azure and other cloud network providers, this can be seen as a benefit. Now, if this Tech Tip Tuesday has piqued your interest about the element of shared cloud responsibility and shared cloud security models, we'd very much like to have a further conversation with you about exactly how we can help you understand your requirements and make the best use of cloud. So please get in touch, sep2.co.uk. Thanks for watching.